Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Grizzly Bear Sims YouTube channel, and welcome back to GreenRiver. This is episode number 28. Thanks so much for coming back for another episode here on this wonderful map. We are in a brand new game day. We are in the very first game day of autumn or fall, as we refer to it here in the US of A. And we're having a ball here harvesting sunflowers, and our sunflower fields did come in, as well as what other crop do we have? Soybeans. So we've basically got soybeans, and let me just bring up the map here and you can kind of take a look at this together. We've got, actually no, I lie, just our sunflowers are in today, so 13 and 15, our soybeans 27 and 28, and you might remember this infamous field down here where our Billy Bob ran the tractor off into the water there many episodes ago, many months ago as well. And then of course we've got our Sugarbeets here on field 14. Now I speculated as to whether or not Courseplay, how Courseplay would handle the soil compaction and everything. It looks like it's doing a fairly good job here running. Of course, I selected it to do its headlands last, so it is maybe in the process of doing that now. I'm not sure, but it's doing a fairly good job. And of course, our field that we planted in oilseed radish has a light compaction, as we would expect, because obviously we drove the tractor and the seeder across it after we cultivated. So still just kind of figuring things out, figuring out how it all works and everything. And of course, I don't expect the compaction mod or even seasons to be ready for Farm Sim 19 on day 1. Maybe not even on day 5 or 10, whenever I hopefully get around to finally being able to play it. But at least I'm getting a little bit of experience with it, and we'll sort of just play around with it as we get access to it in 19, if it makes its way to 19, and just enjoy it all together. I suppose maybe I should turn on our headlights here, that way we can illuminate our crop just a little bit and take a look at the beautiful sunflowers coming in. So if you remember in the last episode, I was kind of running down a list of things that I knew about that was coming into Farm Sim 19, and I had run through quite a few of the things. I mentioned about the 3 different maps, the standard size maps, the game modes, the way that we buy plots instead of fields, all that kind of stuff. Really, the next thing on my list of features has to do with the dynamic hoses. Now, I think I talked about the suspension system, and I sort of liken that to how it sort of behaves with Flight Sim, and I mentioned, I'm pretty sure I mentioned, because at least that's how I'm remembering it, I mentioned that it can make you a little bit nauseous, so hopefully it's not overdone. It would be nice if it's just, sort of a light touch instead of just really bouncing you all over the cab, because I think that would really get old pretty fast. I mean, there's a lot of levels of immersion that we all want to see in a simulation-based game, but then sometimes if it just really overdoes it, if it just makes it so just over the top that it just takes away from it, it distracts from the experience and the enjoyment, then obviously we don't want that. But the dynamic hoses, that's a hard word to say. That is something that's going to be very cool, I think, to the game. And I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop and pipe out here and let him catch up with us, because he is probably going to have some problems, perhaps, with that tree. Maybe not. We will see what happens. Where are you? You're slipping, aren't you? That's because you went right over into that tree. Would love to see Courseplay have a little bit better job of field definition, from the point that it understands where the field boundaries are, and it basically would not venture away from that boundary, because it knows that there might be either a fence or a tree or a hedge or a guardrail or something of that nature sort of in the way, and hopefully he'll do his thing there, and we'll just continue to do our thing, and everybody will kind of live happily together. Anyway, so the dynamic hoses, that is obviously something that's going to be very cool, I think, for the game. Certainly, not only will the hoses connect to whatever implement that we are using, but also in, say, the example of your sprayer, where you've got a rear-mounted 3-point hitch type sprayer mechanism. Now, why are you coming up to empty me? I'm not gonna let him empty me right now, because I think he's going to just cause problems, and I am going to send the driver home. And see if that helps. With the, like, say, the 3-point hitch mounted sprayer, in Farm Sim 17 or 15, as far as that goes, how does the chemical, the fertilizer, whatever it is, how does it get from the front tank that we mount on the front of the tractor to the back tank? Because there's no hoses, it's just, there's a magic process that takes place, obviously. But with Farm Sim 19, there will be dynamic hoses that we will see that will connect those two, and it just heightens and enhances the immersion, at least as far as I'm concerned. There will be built-in, baked into the game, to the default game, there will be a wear and tear system that will be developed, or that will be in the game. And from what I understand with this, from hearing some people talk about it, that I'm guessing saw this in a demo, is that our equipment now will depreciate. It will show signs of wear and tear, maybe some rust, maybe some bare metal. I don't know if it's going to be dynamic in the sense that if I were to hit the tree right there, which I'm not going to do, I'm going to try not to do, that it would cause damage right then and there, because we really don't have a damage mod per se baked into 17, but I don't know if it's going to be dynamic in that respect. We'll just kind of have to wait and see, I suppose. But that will be cool. That we'll have to do, obviously repairs to our vehicles. Of course, we've had that feature with the Seasons mod now, that we've been able to do maintenance on our equipment. But I think if we can see if that the maintenance, the wear and tear, if that is visually enhanced as well as physically. In other words, we need to do repairs on it, but we also can kind of see the damage that we're talking about, and make a determination as to, okay, well, do we really need to do that now, or is it something that we can wait and do later on when we may have a little bit better income, money in the bank, whatever. That will be cool. Now, I've heard this talked about, and I don't think it is. I don't think it's going to be in the game at all, but I've heard folks talking about the Gearbox functionality. And let me just fix this tractor over here again. Okay, back to reality of the game here. So gearboxes, I don't think that's going to make it into the game. I think that some time ago I heard that Giants was experimenting with trying to add gearbox functionality into Farm Sim 19, and either they couldn't get it baked in, or there were problems, or maybe a combination of the two factors, and they have essentially decided not to add it into 19. Now, of course, we've had a gearbox mod for 17 for some time, and I'm assuming that if whomever created that converts it over to 19, then those folks that enjoy having a gearbox mod will have that available to them, and they can enjoy that. Let's go ahead and let this guy come up and empty us, because I think that we're just for whatever reason, I don't know if it's his combine or what, but he tends to have an issue with thinking that he's in traffic, even though he's quite a ways away from the combine. So that might be something to further look at. This is the Eustace Farmer version of the John Deere combine. Great combine, but I was not aware that that was a potential problem until I've basically started doing some harvesting just a couple of days ago. So something to look at. But anyway, so Gearbox is not, again, I don't think that that's going to be a thing. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not a big, there's no love loss there. Now, what would have been cool, I think, is if Giants would have been able to have developed it, then maybe it would have functioned a little bit better. You know, sort of the gearbox, the more realistic, some of those things. I think that what they're trying to do is they're having to overcompensate to create the illusion as if there's better ground control, ground friction, physics is the word I'm looking for. And I think that, you know, until Giants can really put better physics into the game, I think that we're just going to, you know, have to kind of put up with some of these other types of mods that may or may not perform kind of the way that we want them to. Wheels are now cylinders, and I think that the takeaway from this, you know, often have a problem with if you're loading, say, for example, a combine, trying to load a combine onto a lowboy trailer. Typically, most of the lowboys, unless they're a mod, they're just not wide enough, and so putting half of a tire onto the lowboy, it doesn't, you know, the piece of equipment itself doesn't think that there's enough tire on the lowboy, and it sort of tips off to the side. Well, now the wheels will be complete cylinders, so even if a half of the tire tread is on the lowboy, the piece of equipment will stay, will basically stay on the lowboy. So that's the example that I'm talking about there, and I think that's going to be good. Of course, we're going to have to wait for mods like or functions like GPS and courseplay and things like that to come into the game. You know, I was kind of hopeful that something as I think that would be quite easy for Giants to implement into the game, like the GPS mod. I would have thought that that would have been something that they would put into 15, because that is possibly, the GPS mod is possibly one of the most popular mods. Of course, courseplay is a little bit more enhanced, and there's a lot of people that don't necessarily want to use courseplay, but I think the GPS function, because you can either turn it on or turn it off, I would have thought that that would have been something that would have been nice for Giants to have put into the game, but it doesn't appear that they have been able to do that. Now, Lime is something that is new for FarmSim 19. I don't, you know, when I first heard that Lime was going to be in the game, I'm thinking, oh, fantastic! This is a precursor to getting the soil mod, getting the soil mod functionality put into the game, maybe, because as we know, if you enjoyed the soil mod back in FarmSim 15 time frame, you know that the soil mod, or at least Lime, as it relates to the soil mod, would affect the pH soil levels, and but it appears that the way that Giants is using Lime in FarmSim 19 is basically to avoid the requirement of having to plow after the third harvest. Now, you know, because I pretty much always play with the Seasons mod. Of course, started out 17 without it because it wasn't available yet, and obviously I will start 19 without it because I don't foresee it being available on day one for 19. But let me go ahead and let him empty. But obviously, with playing with the Seasons mod, I have never really played more than a year and a half on any given map. So I've never come back around. I've never basically harvested, never done 3 harvests on a single field and had the need to come back and plow again. So of course, playing without the Seasons mod, we can, get more harvests and everything in within a shorter span of time, because we don't have to wait for all of the growth cycles and the calendar year and all that stuff to come by. So it will be interesting, but again, I'm kind of hopeful that someday we'll get some functionality that was similar to what we enjoyed with the soil mod, because that just really added some additional realism in the fact that we needed to worry about the soil moisture and the pH and that sort of thing. Weeds are going to be obviously a thing in the game, which I think is going to be great. That's one of the things that I have to say that I'm kind of looking forward to, is being able to do things with weeds more so than what we are able to essentially use them in 17. Of course, we have got the weeder in 17 and we've got weeders in 19, but from what I understand, the first, if like level 1 weed infestation, we can handle that with our weeder. But if it's beyond level 1, maybe they're calling that second stage, I think, second stage weed infestation, then obviously we've got to hit that with our herbicide, with our Roundup, or whatever that is going to simulate there. And so that's going to be cool, because that's something that obviously farmers have to deal with in real life. Now, something that I was thinking about today, and I would love it if this was true, but I would love to be able to mow weeds. So what I'm talking about with regards to mowing weeds is when we have, say, a grass field and we've got the verge and everything in 15 and even in 17, basically the mower just kind of skips over the weeds. It would be cool if in 19, if those would be mowable, so that we could at least visually clear things up and see that that has been done. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see if that is going to be the case or not. I don't know. There is this is another biggie on my list that I'm really excited about, a full shop redesign. So I believe that there's going to be better category listings, possibly classifications of tractors, small, medium, large, things like that. But also, and this is something that I really don't understand why Giants could not have put this into FarmSim 17, because if we look at, and I often compare ETS2 and ATS to FarmSim, because they're very similar simulation-based games, and they basically have kind of grown up together at the same time. But we've had the functionality in both ETS2 and ATS of being able to visualize our customizations, so be able to see what things look like. If we want to put chrome wheels, or if we want to have painted rims, or if we want to have lights on the side or whatever, we can see those. Or if we want to change it from red to green or whatever, we can see those changes dynamically before we buy. And unfortunately, with FarmSim 17, you've got to buy it, and then you realize, well, that's the wrong color green. That doesn't closely match John Deere green, and then you got to sell it and maybe cheat some money in or whatever to compensate for that little bit of a mistake. And so now those things are going to be dynamic, and I think that's going to be very, very cool. Very much looking forward to that. And I say thank you, Giants, for basically putting that functionality into the game. The missions have been redesigned. Very cool. Very, very good job for Giants for doing this. In 17, as you know, or if you are not familiar with 17, with the missions, we could do work for other farmers. And so when we go up to a field and it says there's a mission available, we select it, and then the equipment sort of magically appears, and everything is all, that way. So that's fantastic news about the mission redesign. From what I understand, also we're supposed to have the option to, with regards to the mission redesign, we're also supposed to have the option to use our own equipment, or essentially use the farmer's equipment. So that's going to be cool, because I would think that, in most cases, if you're going to go and do work for maybe another farmer, you might need to use your equipment. And also believe that there's going to be no time restrictions on the missions themselves, which is going to be a good enhancement. Sounds also like delivery missions are going to be back in 19. These were sort of the whole mission process with 15, and so deliveries are going to be back in FarmSim 19. The other cool thing is that our HUDs within FarmSim 19 will be transparent, so not really sure how to visualize that. I've not seen any pictures of that just yet, but I'm hopeful that that will be something that will be interesting, and maybe we won't have to necessarily rely on hiding HUDs so much. Of course, for content production and stuff like that, I know that oftentimes all the HUDs and everything being on the screen really takes away from, as I'm driving around with my HUDs on, really sort of takes away from the visual aspects that you all, the viewers, get to see. But hey, we'll see how that looks and how that works. Dynamic clouds. Now, this is something that I think a lot of us thought might be the case for 17, but it didn't come to fruition. But we now have the ability to have dynamic clouds, so the clouds in the sky will kind of build and move as we might see them in real life. And let me go fix this guy here, because and in addition to dynamic clouds, we're also going to have the ability to visually see rain and maybe snow coming before it actually arrives in the vicinity. So we would see rain clouds or whatever forming in the distance, and they would get closer and closer and closer. And that would be really cool, because now within FarmSim 17, if there's rain in the forecast, it might just be clear like this for one moment, and then the next moment it's raining, and it doesn't really give you an opportunity to sort of make a decision and say, well, something, I think we need to essentially stop and get prepared for this rain that's obviously coming. The sun and the moon will actually do things other than just be the sun and the moon. In other words, they will be a better light source. So clouds and everything may hamper the ability of the sun to provide full light and everything on our fields, but also we'll have some light from the moon if we want to do some of those nighttime harvests. And of course, possibly the number one thing on my list of things that I'm excited about with FarmSim 19 is the fact that there will be no more rain inside the buildings or inside some cabs and stuff like that of vehicles, and that is just very cool. And again, I don't know why it's taken so long for this concept to make its way into the game, because it doesn't rain inside the cab in FarmSim or in TS2 or ATS. Crop destruction is going to now be in the base game, so that's kind of a step forward in the right direction. We don't need to rely on a mod. I would assume that this will be one of the things that can be switched on or switched off. Sort of in addition to crop destruction, we will see like crops bend. So if we are, for example, we're spraying our crops and we're driving through the crops, if we've got road crop tires on, we'll see the crops bend out of the way as the tires brush by, or as, say, the boom on the sprayer arms pass over the crops. That's going to be really cool. That's just extra level of immersion as far as I'm concerned. Our farmhouse is going to be our spawn point. So I think the key takeaway for that is essentially going to be that if we are able to design our farms and however we want those to be, you might want to think about where you want to have your main house, wherever that is going to visually be, and you guys are going to just need to pretend like that guy's not driving through the crops there. Anyway, we'll now be able to have the house as a spawn point, and we'll be able to determine where we're going to place that house based on wherever we want it to be. Buyable chickens are once again a thing with FarmSim 19. We could not buy chickens in 17 for some reason or another, but now we can, so that's cool. Eggs are going to be picked up in boxes or pallets. That is the new thing with regards to the egg concept, so we don't need to run around like a madman or a woman picking up Easter eggs off the ground. They will be placed into boxes or pallets of some shape, and we'll be able to pick those up, and life will go on and be cool. We're now going to have the ability to sell milk. Of course, those of us on PC, at least on PC, maybe on consoles, I don't know if they have the stop milk sell or not, but at least for those of us on PC, we've had a stop milk sell for as long as I've been playing this game. But the whole, sort of concept baked into 19 is that now we can sell our own milk, which isn't necessarily realistic as far as I'm concerned. As far as my experience with farming has been when I was a child, growing up, one of my friends had a dairy. They did not transport their own milk. They basically had a milk company come by and pick it up in the wee hours of the morning or the night or some point in time. And so the way that it works in the base game now is more realistic as far as I'm concerned. But I guess maybe for some of our European friends, maybe they're more used to the folks delivering the milk themselves. And I'm sure there will be a stop milk cell, or the opposite of a stop milk cell. I'm sure there will be a automatic cell mod that will come available for the game, or maybe that will be a switch that will be baked in to the game that we can make that change and then obviously have that functionality if we want to play that way. Horses are in the game. There's a ranking system. I think I talked about that just a few moments ago. There's a ranking system with the horses. When you buy them, I guess they're dumb as a box of rocks, and then as you work with them, they will gain in experience levels or whatever, and then once they reach a certain experience level, you can sell them, and life is good. All right, well, we are at our magic 30 minutes, roughly. I've had a couple of edit cuts that I'm going to take out of here because I had a phone call, and I had some probably cut out some of these other horseplay mishaps, and so it'll probably be a little bit shorter of an episode, but I wanted to thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Now, I think that what I will do is off camera, I'm going to finish up harvesting this field, and then when we come back together for the next episode, I'll probably have the combine on Courseplay or just AI worker, and then maybe we'll drive the auger wagon and maybe do a few other things while we're waiting for the combine to fill up, and have an episode like that. And then we'll see what happens with the rain and how that affects the rest of our journey through fall. I'm hoping that if we can get the sunflowers, the other field of sunflowers harvested in this game day, then I'm hopeful that come the Monday, the fourth game day of fall, that we can hit those soybeans and maybe the sugar beets if they are ready, because it's looking quite crazy weather, and I'm sure winter is going to be an interesting one as well. So we'll just kind of have to see how that works. Well, anyway, thank you so much for watching, folks. I do appreciate it, and I will be right back here with another episode very soon. Take care of yourself and also of each other, and I'll speak to you down the road. Bye-bye for now.